So we have the Navionics app and Navionics or Navionics, and you can see the topography underwater, but right here where we are sitting right now is only 3 meters or 9 feet deep. So we're going to go back. So this looks like a pretty obvious structure here. We're going to go back this way a bit, because sometimes from what we've been learning about trout, they'll push the bait fish along and then catch them as they come up towards a high point here. So I think if we go back 30 feet this way, it's 15, 16 meters deep. That's 30, 40 plus feet. That should be a good spot. We'll set up our camp there, and then we'll do some fishing in all different spots around here. So one of the major trainings we want to do on our journey to self-reliance is learning how to catch trout here in the winter. So we've had pretty good success with pike. They're very aggressive, and they bite on whatever we put down there, which is awesome. You got him, bud. Nice. Woohoo, fella. You got him. That's awesome. Put her there, pal.
Let's go.
Woohoo. Just get your hand under his tail. There you go.
You set him?
You can enjoy it.
All right.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Way to go, guys. But this lake is full of beautiful lake trout. We know that because we've been able to catch them in the summer. Dan went on a downrigger, caught a big one. I'll show you a video or a picture of that. That is insane.
Yes. Oh my word.
Right here, buddy. Look what you caught. That's a huge lake. Whoa.
That is massive.
Whoa.
Broke our net.
Woo, we need a bigger net. Now that is a lake, man. We know they're here, but in the winter it's a whole different art and science to catching them. They move around a lot more because all the water's cold. In the summer, they're pretty predictable. They go for the coldest water, which is the deepest water. So we just go around and find the deepest water and we can find them. But yeah, now they're chasing the bait fish apparently. So come with us as we learn on this journey of ice fishing. We're not experts, but we want to become experts. So we're going to practice. We're just dedicating this whole week to chasing across the lake, chasing the big lakers, and we'll see if we can find them.
Set up our otter tent, and an interesting thing with these is when you're sitting up on ice, you can't really use traditional tent stakes like the ones you hammer into dirt or sand. They've got these kind of corkscrew metal stakes which are made for going into solid ice. They're pretty neat because they're a little hard to get going. They've got obviously the grooves to screw in. They kind of create their own thread in the ice. So once you just put a lot of pressure down and keep screwing, and you create this little thread, and once you start going, you can just screw it in like any screw, and it holds super good, better than any stake I've ever used, whether that's in the dirt or sand or snow. It is a really effective way of staking something down. It just takes a bit of effort to get in, but yeah, it's kind of a neat thing that it's new to us, because we stake down a lot of tents with a lot of different kinds of stakes, but this is a new one.
All right, so we spent a bit of time yesterday going out and drilling some holes in the ice and checking for underwater structure, and we're starting to get an idea, at least locally here, what it looks like underwater. We've also got that app, Navionics, which really gives us a good indication of what's down there. So that was fun. We didn't catch anything. So the hunt continues. It's going to take us all week, I think, or all the rest of the winter maybe even, just to learn how the trout behave, where they hang out in the winter and what they bite on. So it's going to take a lot of patience, but we're willing to do whatever it takes, because that's an important part of off-grid living and self-reliance, is being able to get protein from the wild, and fish is a great source of that. In the summer, not so hard, but right now we're just going to do the work it takes to learn. So we set up a couple of tip-ups, which is basically a little contraption where you put live bait on the rod, you bend it over, and it sits in the water, and if something bites on it, it'll snap up, and we can go at that point reel in the fish. So those are out there, and hopefully the fish are checking them out and coming closer. While that's happening, I'm going to answer some of your questions. So 2 weeks ago we put out a video on how we live off-grid as a family of 5. We had an amazing response from that video, but we also got a lot of questions. So we answered everything we thought, we gave you everything we thought we knew, but there was still some unanswered questions in that. And one of them, really good question a lot of you asked, was in regards to water filtration. So let me talk a little bit about water filtration and how we do it here at the island. Now there's all kinds of different ways of doing water filtration, especially if you have a full-time permanent water system. Then there's units you can buy that do infrared and all kinds of things. But since we don't, and we're not planning on doing that, at least for the short term, we need a system that we can come to in the winter and leave without having to winterize and all that kind of stuff. And also we don't want a system that we have to leave powered up all winter. If the batteries went dead and we weren't here and we didn't have someone to start the generator, and say we had 2 weeks of no sun for the solar panels when they get installed, then the line would freeze, and we just don't want all those hassles. So with our current system, where we're bringing water into the house, we are using what we also use on the road, which is the Lifesaver jerry cans. These are really awesome filters, and I'll show you as much as I know about them, but we've been using them for some time now, at least 2.5 years, and they're just convenient, easy to carry, easy to fill, and easy to pump up water. So I'll just show you how we do it. They're both empty right now. We use 2 of them on our travels and here at the island. And the nice thing with these is when we get back in the Jeeps, we just take them with us, and we have a water filtration system in the Jeeps. So they work for both lifestyles. But step 1 is I'm going to go fill them up at our indoor water tank. So in the tank here we have unfiltered water pumped directly out of the lake. And so with the hose, I'm putting the unfiltered water into the jerry can. Now you can also dip that underwater in a lake. We've done that many times, or hold it under a stream or a waterfall to fill. So while this is filling, I'm just going to show you the filtration system here. So first the tap comes off, but what you'll notice is under the tap here is a charcoal filter. And when you buy the unit, you get a bunch of replacements. What the charcoal does, that filter removes any kind of taste out of the water. So if it was pumped out of a swampy area, or if there was some kind of unpleasant taste in the water, that does a really good job of removing any of that. So that's one. And then to remove any impurification, so whether it's toxins or sediment or dirt or mud. You can put brown swamp water in this end and it'll come clean out of this end. The filter takes care of that. It also removes viruses and all kinds of things. So these can be used in third world countries where the water's not safe for you to drink. But it's an incredible filter, and I encourage you to go onto their website and read the specifications. It's pretty impressive. So now these are both full. I'm going to take them inside and fill up the coffee kettle and show you how we will either drink it, fresh purified water, or use it for coffee or tea. So let's go inside. Okay, we've got the water inside now. Typically we set it on its side that you get the best results. So I use the table here and the bench. That's about the perfect way to fill something up. You can use a countertop, whatever, but this is what we've been doing here at the island. So just setting it on the table, on its side, and then putting the container you want to fill underneath. So this is nearly filled, so I haven't pumped it up yet. I'll go ahead and get about 20 pumps on there. Actually, you don't need to do 20. You can feel when it's got some pressure to it, and that's when you should stop. Apparently you can over pressurize them and do damage. So we just fill up our water jug. It's actually an old Brita filter. It doesn't have a filter in it, but it makes a good water jug. And there you have it, clean, cold, filtered water straight out of the lake. Nothing like it. Good stuff, Hilts. Okay, so we have watched a bunch of YouTube videos. We don't just create YouTube, we consume it when it's educational. And some guys were talking about trout behavior and how difficult it is to actually find them. So we thought we were just really bad fishermen, and we're finding out that it takes a bit of fish know-how to catch trout in the winter, for the simple fact that they can move wherever they want because the water's cold everywhere. So they're moving all the time. So from what we've learned, because the fish travel, the trout travel, they can be in the deep water at the top of the, like at the surface of the ice, or they could be at 30 feet, they could be right down at 100. There really is no way to know this time of year. So what we're going to do is jump on the snowmobiles and just start going around the lake to some really good spots where we know it's deep, where we know it's, you know, mid-range and shallow, and we're going to poke holes with the drill, put our transducer in there, and see if we can even spot some movement. We'll sit for 20 minutes at each spot, I guess, and according to most of the guides and experts we've been listening to, within 20 minutes to a half an hour you should at least see some kind of fish showing up on the sonar. So let's give it a try, and as soon as we spot an area that looks like there's some activity, then maybe we'll go there and put the rods in. And I'm bringing one rod just in case we get lucky and we find a whole school of fish. But yeah, let's go check it out. So Carol and Dan brought both snow dogs in to the dealership today just to get some maintenance done and a few repairs. We had worn out one of the we broke one of the throttle cables and a few things like that. So thankfully my brother and his son left two of their machines up here last time they were here for us to use. So we get to try out snowmobiles and go anywhere in the lake with these machines before we buy our own. So that the plan is we're currently looking around for you know, a good snowmobile or two, because it's just become evident that it's a must-have machine if we're living up here. Along with the snow dogs, I don't think we'll get rid of them. They're great for early ice and they're great for bringing in groceries or dragging firewood out of the bush. But to get around on the lake the way we're gonna do today, nothing beats a snowmobile. So,
all right, so we just dropped off both snow dogs for a little maintenance and get them all looking pretty again. But now we're gonna head home.
We're kind of in the middle of this one section of the lake. It's as good a spot as any to start drilling. We'll first check the depth, then we'll let the sonar just sit there and see if it indicates on any fish. So 60 feet of water here.
It's about 61.
Oh yeah, we went down a foot. Too.
Not a living creature.
No.
60 feet.
Nothing. Alright, nothing here. We're gonna head 200 feet up the lake, drill another hole, and try again. Okay, at this hole, we actually saw something indicate way down at the bottom and then something about halfway up. And it went across the sonar or across the screen for a while and then disappeared. We jigged for a little bit, but it's encouraging. We saw something. We don't know what it was. It wasn't huge, so it may not have been a trout, but we're gonna move another 200 feet and poke a hole and see what we can find. Is that left over? Okay, so let me turn that. So we saw what appears to possibly be a fish. At least we saw lines on the graph again. So I jigged for a while, but no bites. But it's promising. We're seeing action in there, whereas before we saw a completely clear screen. So we don't know if we're using the, the wrong bait or what. But I think tomorrow we'll come back out with a couple different baits on different rods, and if we see some more action, we'll add that component to the search. But we're only a quarter of the way up this lake, so we have to go pick up Carol and Dan because they're now coming back from dropping off those snow dogs, and they won't have a ride back. So we're gonna go get them, and then tomorrow we'll pick up where we left off. Just keep going 200 feet at a time. And yeah, we'll also be continuing throughout this video to answer your questions about off-grid living and our experiences so far. But we have a question for you if you're a trout fisherman, specifically going for Lakers under ice. How do you do that? Leave some comments for us. All right, we're heading out to pick up Carol and Dan. They're almost at the marina, and get them home. But it got really cold as evening started setting in. It's probably dropped 5 degrees. So we're bundled up for some cold weather.
Just leave those.
I'll go on the back with Dad.
Good morning. This is day 3 of our search for lake trout. Yesterday we had a few indications show up on the screen, so that was exciting. But today what we've been doing is watching some YouTube videos from actual trout fishing guides, ice fishing guides, and what we've learned from that is pretty helpful information. We learned about an app which I've already shown you, so we've installed that app. But now what we watched this morning was all about trout behavior and where they like to go in the winter and how they feed. And really what we found out is, they're always chasing the bait fish. So you want to try to find the bait fish, and the trout will be nearby there. But also I'll show you on the screen here an actual shot of our lake and some of the underwater structure that typically would help corral the bait fish. So these trout are very smart, and they try to push the bait into these different structures, which we'll show you. And not that we're experts, but this is what we learned this morning. And they push the bait into that area, and it kind of corrals the bait, and then the bait will go up these steep underwater cliffs, and the fish will follow them. And you're trying to position yourself in those areas. So we're going to spend a bit of time marking on our lake using the sonar maps and topographical maps, and find a couple of spots that look like they might be good for a habitat for bait fish and trout fishing and all that. So that's what we're doing this morning. Let's take a look at the screen. Okay, so here's a topographical map of our lake, a very small section of our lake, but we have the ice fishing hut set up right about here. And the reason we set it up there is because my brother texted me and said over the years past, when he's come up here snowmobiling, he's seen someone else put their hut there. So that was our logic, and sometimes that works. But now that we've learned some of this information about trout behavior and underwater structure, this section here looks like what the guy was telling us is what he called, I think, an outside turn. But you can see that it's a very steep hills on either side, underwater hills, and then a deep flat area here. So the trout will hang out in the deep, but they'll push bait into these types of corners. Another one here, and this one looks really good. I think this he called a trench or a ditch, but steep walls on both sides and on the end, and the trout will just kind of corral bait fish into that section here, and then they'll have no escape, so they'll go up, and that's when the trout attack them. So what we're going to do today is find a bunch of spots just like that. Those look great. And they seem to be all over the lake, and rather than doing what we were doing yesterday, which is just punching holes and, you know, looking for fish, we're going to now specifically go after certain features underwater. So it's going to be fun, and we'll bring the results to you. I promise you, we'll keep working. Even if we don't catch a fish this week, we're going to keep working, even if it takes a year, even if we don't catch one until next year. Eventually we're going to learn what we want to learn, which is how to catch lake trout.
So you and I should fish in the hut, and then we'll let the boys go and fish
Brave
out
the cold.
up there. It's freezing today. It'd be so neat to catch something with your own hands and then put it on the table. Like sprinkle some seasoning on it, fry it up. It's been so neat learning about our own lake, what's underneath it. You know, you never think about it when you're just boating along, what's underneath you, and now we get to walk over top of it, but pay more attention to all the little details underneath. Never really looked at fishing as anything, like it never interests me until now. There's a lot more to it. It's fascinating to learn. I just couldn't imagine, you know, catching something and cooking it and then putting it on the table. Unbelievable. You know, it's crazy to think how rewarding that would be, and just fun. It's fun to get outside and learn a skill. Lando sure loves it. Just soaking in the sunshine today. Absolutely sunny. It just blows my mind. If you're wondering why I'm always walking, it's because I'm always trying to get in my 10,000 steps, just walking steps. That's not including like working out or something, but and it's just so good for you to walk and slow down and really look at all the animal tracks that are crossing the lake, paying attention to small details in the snow, weather. It's really good for me. I love it.
Okay, so Dan and I just took a sled and the drill and at least one rod. We head out to a spot that we're kind of looking at on that Navionics map. We showed it this morning. I don't know if this can see, but we came to this island that we know is on kind of in the center of the lake. It's not as deep as where Mom and Dad are fishing right now. It's about 90 feet deep, roughly 90, 80 feet deep. But there's a nice shelf that leads right up to the island, and it's encircled like it's an oval shape that's about 200 feet long, right where we're standing basically. That goes down to 90 feet and it quickly rises to about 20 feet on all sides basically. So it's this really deep shelf. Don't necessarily know that trout or something would be down in there, but it seems like if they were to be in this area, this would be a decent spot. So yeah, we're gonna drill a hole, test it out, spend about 20 minutes right here, probably move down somewhere, spend another 20 minutes, and then maybe another 20 minutes, roughly an hour in each place before, you know, checking it off as fished before we move to a new place. So yeah, let's get at her. As far as bait goes, we're just kind of using some of the stuff we had and some stuff that local fishing stores recommended. This is like a speckled, just tubular bait with a little fin that paddles around. Let's put it in. I don't know what it's exactly called. Like a 2 ounce lead green head on it. We have a few different things. Mom, I think, is using a rattle bait of some kind. It's like a leech rattle bait. I'm just testing that out. Dad has a big tube, which quite a few people have said work well. So I've got a few different baits in my pocket. We'll kind of swap out as we go. But yeah, I don't think our problem is so much equipment. We just haven't even had a nibble. So it could be equipment, it could be us fishing. We're gonna figure out what it is as we go. This could take, as my dad said, like a week or a month to figure out. We'll see. We figured it out pretty good for summertime. Dan's got a couple trout. I've caught a trout up here before within an hour of fishing, and we know some of the areas that they like to hang out. But winter has been challenging for us, that's for sure. And I'm just gonna try like bottom jigging. So go all the way to the bottom, which should be, like I said, around 90 feet or so here. I think it's actually a bit shallower than that. It's probably 70 feet. And then letting it touch bottom and jigging up from there. I'll try that, and then I'll try just, I'll try everything I can. I'll try to catch a fish. All right, so we've been here for a good 25-30 minutes. I just recently swapped my bait. Had this on before. This guy's kind of like a solid plastic bait with this little paddle, so it kicks up a bit when you're jigging or letting it drop and bringing it up. But threw on it. We've got these 2.5-inch tubes, or neon green, kind of like the lead head we got on. So I'll probably do this for another 10 minutes in this hole, and then might go actually closer to the island, get a little bit into the shallows. It'll still be a good 50-40 feet deep where I plan to go, but I don't know. Just see if they get more reactive to a bait if they're in this area when it's in shallows, almost as if they've pushed bait fish into the shallower waters where they can kind of corral them. That's what we've been hearing a lot on videos, because, you know, we're brand new to this. Obviously, we're not expert fishermen. I can't tell you about most of the gear that we have, except that it was recommended at stores. But it's something, I mean, Dan is super into summertime fishing. Both me and him got more into it in the last year or so. So we have fun in the summer. In the winter, it's beauty. I mean, I love coming out onto a frozen lake, taking a sled out, and even the tent, like spending a night. So next part about the whole ice fishing experience would be actually catching a fish. And yeah, that's what I'm really trying to do now. So hoping that moving a little closer into the shallows might let us see some action.
Fish? No, Lando. Lando, it's okay. Sit down. Go sleep. Go sleep. Good boy. So we might come back after dinner and try a little bit of night fishing. Caroline is making a delicious dinner for us, so that's really nice. And Lando is all cozy, warm in there, having a lot of fun. It's neat to see a fish come after your lure, and it would be so exciting to catch one. That was a neat experience.
All right, we are back at the cabin and looking forward to dinner. It was a good day, a cold day, but we learned a lot, had a great time out here hunting for lake trout. Haven't quite found them yet, but we're gonna keep on it. Another question that we got a lot was, how do you handle garbage? So let's talk about that for a minute. A couple of things. We recycle, we compost, and then we take whatever's left over to the landfill, which is not that much if you think about it. So back, I remember in school we learned about reduce, reuse, recycle. So in terms of reducing the amount of garbage we have, recycling things helps a lot, but we don't recycle everything. For instance, any jars that we use, they become a very helpful, useful tool for storing dry goods, or even tools in the shop. We screw the top to the shelf, and then you can just use that as a handy container. So we can't have enough jars, so we'd never recycle jars. Things like paper plates or packaging, cardboard, we use that to start fires in the morning, whether inside in our wood stove or outside when we're cooking out there. So we don't end up having to recycle that. To reduce things like cans, you know, if we wanted a carbonated drink, we bought a soda stream so we can make our own, and we just use a regular drinking glass. So that reduces, you know, recycling cans. We don't have water bottles because we just filter the water out of the lake, and we use, you know, a glass drinking container as well. So we reduce the amount of recycling we have, so we're literally left down to just things like plastics. So that's kind of cool. We reduce the amount of garbage, by taking, of course, the recycling out of there, but secondly, we don't throw away any food items. We use this little container here for compost. Everything except for bones, pretty much, ends up in here, and when that's full, it's in a compostable, biodegradable bag in there. We take it up into the forest where we have a plastic composting bin. We're going to really work on developing that even further over the years, but for now that works great. We throw the compost in there. In the winter it freezes solid, but first thing in the spring, well before the snow's melted off, the end of March or early April, the microorganisms are working away at that food, turning it into beautiful compost, which we use in our gardens. So once we're done composting, recycling, and then reducing everything by the methods I talked about, we're really only left with one bag of garbage a week for 5 adults and a dog. So that's not that bad. And then that garbage and whatever recycling we do have, we tow it across the lake and we bring it up to the little village we're nearby, about a 40-minute drive from here, and they have a landfill which is open 2 days a week, and we dump it there. During ice up, of course, we just hold on to that for the 4 or 5 weeks. So we'll have about 4 or 5 bags, and as soon as we can get across the lake, we go. Sometimes we don't want to go up there every week, so we hold on to it for 2 weeks. I think they're going up today, and we haven't been up there for 3 weeks, so they'll have about 3 bags of garbage.
Alright, so it's Saturday, which means it's trash day. So we just finished up loading the Jeep. We're going to take it to the dump, and just going to park the sled and we'll head out.
Alright, and the last question I'm going to address on this video, and we got it from a lot of people, was how do you do laundry in the winter? Now, you know how we do it in the spring, summer, and fall when we can be outside. We have that old antique wringer washer, which does a great job, and then we hang everything on the line for drying. But how do we do it in the winter? So, because we don't have running water. During ice up, when we can't get off the island, we really go back to the 1800s, and we use a washboard and a bucket. And that works great. It's a lot of elbow grease, scrubbing your socks and so on, but it works. And then we hang the wet laundry up around the wood stove to dry. What we want to get with this is a wringer, and it's basically a hand wringer, and that will take a whole stage out. Right now you struggle squeezing out the water before you can dry it. So, but that is a complete off-grid way of doing laundry, and it seems to work. So we do that during ice up, but once we're able to get up to town, there's a tiny little laundromat there, And while we dump the garbage, we check for packages at the post office, and we have the laundry going in the laundromat. Alright guys, we're all back at the cabin, warming up after a couple of pretty cold days out on the lake, looking for big lake trout. Even though we didn't catch one, as you know, we learned a lot, so we think it was time well spent. We're that much closer to eventually catching one, and we feel it's a very important part of our family's journey to self-reliance. So it is, believe it or not, it's almost March, and in a month and a half the lake is going to be breaking up and turning back into water, and so we're really excited about spring coming on. This winter for us has flown by, but we have to use the time now, and we're working really hard together as a family, making short-term, mid-term, and long-term plans. We're planning out our next overland adventures, and we can't wait to bring all of the exciting stuff to you guys on our channel every single week. Make sure to stay tuned, and if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us out in continuing to bring wonderful family-friendly programming to all of you on YouTube.